Welcome back to Rich Dad Stockcast. I'm your host, Del Denney, and today we're tackling a hard truth. If you're still broke, it's not just about money, it's about your habits. And as 2025 winds down, now's the time to identify the patterns keeping you financially stuck and start building new ones that lead to wealth. Joining me is Rich Dad expert Andy Tanner, someone who's helped thousands of people shift their money habits and finally break free. And before we get started, head over to stockcastbonus.com. We've got free tools and resources to help you to rewire thinking and take control of your finances before the new year. So let's jump in. Andy, welcome back.
Great to be here, Del. If we're going to talk about bad habits, I got plenty to share.
All right. Between both of us, I think we might have to extend this podcast. But before we get into the bad habits, and hopefully we've got some good habits to share, stockcastbonus.com, amazing resources there. If our listeners go there, free resources, what do they receive when they go there?
I almost don't want to steal that thunder because when maybe we do this podcast in two halves. We'll talk about some of the bad habits, and then after the break, we can talk about some of the good habits. And there's resources there that help people with good habits. So I almost hate to steal the thunder, but go there. For example, we'll talk about one habit that I preach that's a weekly habit that's huge. And there's a download there that helps you establish that particular habit. So when we get there, I'll refer to it again. But there's great stuff there. Knowledge is one thing, behavior is another, and habits are about behavior. And it's the actions that we take that determine things. And so, we want to have knowledge so we know what to do, but doing it, a person who doesn't know what to do and a person that knows what to do, and they both do nothing, are the same person. They get the same result. So that's a really big deal when we talk about habits. Is we'll do a callback to Stockcast Bonus because there's cool habit building stuff there that we'll talk about for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, so free. You can't beat free, right? Let's start with the uncomfortable part. So, Andy, what are the most common habits that quietly keep people broke?
There's so many that I mean, this could be a multi part series. But it's interesting when you read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad that it has 6 lessons, and very few people can recite the 6 lessons in order. It's like the 7 habits of highly effective people, right? Habits. What are the 7 habits? People don't know. But there's a lesson in Rich Dad Poor Dad that's a tough habit to break. He says the rich don't work for money. And that is habitual. That is routine. That is something most people do every single day, is spend at least 8 hours of their day. And if you count lunch and commute, the majority of their day working for money. And that's a rough habit for wealth building. Now, it doesn't mean you need to quit that immediately. Some habits it's best if you did quit them. There might be a transition period and you might start a new habit that can squeeze that old habit out. But the habit of needing a paycheck from your boss is a rough one. And so I'd say that's right up there. Okay. Number 2 is when we do doodads before our assets. Is the order in which we spend some money. If we spend money on doodads before we spend money on an asset, that's a rough habit. Really, really difficult. Another one is when we buy things emotionally as opposed to through a system. We doodads or investments, either one, is we make our decisions based. And we're emotional creatures. We have fear and greed, and that's a really rough one, is when we let fear or greed come in. Those are rough habits to have. So there's no shortage of those things. I'd say another one is a lot of sins of omission. It's not the habit that you're in, it's the habit you've not developed. So we can talk about that as well.
Explain sins of omission. I understand that. Maybe the average person that's new to them. What is sins of omission?
Well, I should bring that in. My father was a religion teacher. He was the leader of the congregation, and so and that was his job. He taught at a seminary, so I had really good perspective on like all the good stuff in the Psalms and the Proverbs and the New Testament. So in the Ten Commandments, you have some things that you shouldn't do. You shouldn't commit murder. You shouldn't commit theft. So those are sins of commission. Those are things you do that you shouldn't. So those are thou shalt not is a commission. So, thou shalt not work for money, right? Thou shalt not work for money. That's a sin of commission. Then you have honor your father, honor your parents, honor your mother, right? Those are thou shalts. So thou shalt honor thy father. So those are things that if we omit, those would be sins of omission. And so, thou shalt work to learn. So the bad habit is number one in Rich Dad Poor Dad. The rich don't work for money. Thou shalt not work for money. But the sixth lesson is the rich work to learn. Thou shalt learn. And so if you don't have a habit of learning every week, if you don't have a habit of increasing knowledge every week, that would be something that we've omitted to do. So some habits are things we do that we shouldn't. I shouldn't be eating cookies. I should be eating spinach. And so those are one that you shouldn't eat and one that you should. And that's commission and omission, if that makes sense.
Thank you for clarifying that. It's great. I just want to make sure we added some context to that because, some people are like, I'm
little
not
church today. Yeah. Little Ten Commandments.
We got a little churchy today.
Church.
Yeah.
There's hope for me yet. Hope for me yet.
But I think it's good because most people, I'm not doing anything bad, but are you doing anything good? Right.
There you go.
Speaking of habits here, some more bad habits. I want to talk about the habit of saving only and paying off debt first. Yeah. Can you speak on that a little bit? Is that a good habit, bad habit? What's your take on that?
Well, if you want to find the answer to that, buy the cash flow game and play it. Because what the cash flow game does is it presents those questions all the time. Okay, should I pay off this debt? Would that be the best use of my money? Or should I buy this asset? Would that be the best use of my money? And that's a big deal to know when to do what, right? Consumer debt is probably not the best, depending on how your money works for you, right? So you can only make those decisions based on how money works for you. So it is a rough habit when people often they want to pay bills first instead of pay themselves first, right? So which is your habit? Pay yourself first or pay your bills first? That's in Rich Dad Poor Dad as well.
That's a big shift right there. Well, let's do this. Let's take a quick break. We've just exposed some of the habits keeping people broke. But here's the good news. Habits can be changed. And in the second half, Andy's going to walk through us or show us exactly how to do it. And before we dive in, go to stockcastbonus.com. If you're serious about upgrading your mindset and money strategies for 2026, the tools there will help you do it. So stick around. We'll be right back.
So far, it's been great. I needed a source where I could really enrich my education through stocks. I didn't really have an avenue for it, and it's helped me a lot. The simplicity has really gotten me on the track to where I enjoy the learning as well as it's really solidifying in my mind. And like, they're not just trying to sell you something, they really care about the people that are in the course, and they really do care about you and your personal goals, and what you want to do is to help you and your family and whatever your goals are in life through that. So it's really been great.
Welcome back to Rich Dad Stockcast. Now let's talk transformation, how to replace broke habits with the habits of financially free people. So question for you, Andy. What's one daily or weekly habit every investor should develop before 2026?
We'll spend a little time on this one because I think it's huge. And I said I was going to mention stockcastbonus.com. We have a free download book that shows people what to do here and how to do this habit. I had there's a guy I trained with a little bit, mostly from afar. but I would write down some of the wisdom that he would put out. And he said this one time. He said, what you focus on expands. And I thought about that. When we place energy on something, it's going to change. If I were given a talk of momentum, you have to keep focused to keep pushing. And so the amount of time people spend locked in on their wealth blueprint, on building that legacy, a lot of people don't focus on it a lot, and therefore it doesn't expand. And so one of the things, and my wife and I aren't perfect in it, but we really care to be, is we learned this from Robert and Kim, is that they met monthly with Betty the bookkeeper, and they focused on where they were every month. Did I make progress? Did I not? My wife and I do this weekly. So on Sunday, we're going to sit down and talk about this. And sometimes we do it, and sometimes something comes up, or the kid breaks his head, emergency room. And when we get off track, we always say, got to get this done. So we want this done 52 times a year. And there's 6 numbers to look at on a financial statement. You could expand it to 9, I guess, if you wanted to do a business. But on a personal financial statement, 6 usually does the trick. Income, expenses, and the combination of those, you get a net income or a cash flow. Assets, liabilities, you combine those, you get a net worth. So income, expenses, net income, asset, liabilities, net worth. Those are 6 numbers. And that's why we call this the power 6. If a person has a habit where they have a financial statement here with those 6 numbers, and then they write out the financial statement of their dreams, and they say, all right, these are 2 different statements. How do we make this one start to look more like this one? What numbers do we need to change? Do we need more debt or less? Do we need more assets or less? Do we need more net worth or less? Do we need more cash flow or less? Do we need more assets or less expensive, or do we want more expenses? And the ability to manipulate those numbers in your life, to ask the questions, and there's your financial education. What do I do to increase this number? What do I do to change this number? And these are really what in business you might even call key performance indicators, right? How do you tweak those? How do you change a key performance number? Well, it's very similar when you develop the habit of a weekly meeting. It takes about an hour or less. And especially every great wife, my mind, they'll do all the heavy lifting, kind of get them prepared beforehand. And when you look at those, you say, what do we do to change this one and change that one? There is no habit that a person could start right now, getting into 2026, heading into that. As we close out the fourth quarter, there's no habit that I think could be a game changer more than that one, is to simply focus on those 6 numbers and ask the question. Then you have the next part of the meeting, which is the calendar. And on the calendar, you say, what do we have going this week? And hopefully you carve out some time for activities that build wealth. And you say, all right, I want to tweak this number here. I want more income. All right, I'm going to write a covered call, and this is how much I can do it for. And I'm going to write that on Monday, right? Or we need more debt here to buy an asset. So I'm going to go and meet with this private money guy on Thursday, so we can talk about getting more money to buy an asset or whatever it is. This takes financial education to do. Maybe if you get stuck on a certain number, you say, well, I don't know how to squeeze more cash flow out of that. Okay, it's time to study and learn how it's done then. But you're always doing something to manipulate those numbers actively. And you can probably sense that it's a game changer. So we wrote a book on this, this meeting that you have and how to do it. It's called The Power 6, the power of these 6 numbers. And it's a great ebook, available at stockcastbonus.com. There is not a habit. Just imagine what that would do to your life if you were doing that with your spouse or your partner every single week. Incredible. It is changing. It changes what you spend, changes what you do, changes what you buy, changes how you earn. So it's pretty cool.
And I could only imagine too that it also helps with your personal relationship with your loved one, as you're talking through these things.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. People, that's a habit people don't have. The I'm so grateful for my relationship with my spouse that we really can't talk about anything, and we really feel the illusion. I mean, we're just like everybody else, but we feel the illusion that's kind of our deal, that it's us against the world and we're winning, and it's a great illusion. It's a lot of fun, but the ability to talk about anything where nothing is off limits, including money, is a huge, huge benefit that I can talk to my wife. She can talk to me about money and about goals. It's awesome to be on the same page. There's enough friction in the world elsewhere than to have it in your house. So yeah, you're right. If you can talk about money, you can talk about anything.
That is true. That is very true. I love that perspective. Now let's talk about systems. Systems are great habits. One of my favorite quotes is, "People don't rise to the level of their goals; they fall to the level of their systems or habits." So, how can someone start building systems instead of relying on emotion? Uh, like, what does a system look like for managing or investing money?
Well, a lot of times it starts with your team. A system has different parts and different people, and teams really help support systems. And when you look at systems, it's kind of like a standard operating procedure, right? You have rules and principles and procedures about how you do things. So, for example, if you were to look at stocks and options, there's a certain rules that I have. For example, if I'm going to sell an option, it's always 6 weeks or less. That's a rule. If I'm going to buy an option, it's usually 6 weeks or more, usually going to be 2 months or more, sometimes 3. It's usually towards the more part. Why? Well, because we understand time decay. We're going to generally, I'm going to sell deltas of, single digits or lower. 10 or lower, I should say, 10 or lower, usually in a single digit, a high single digit. These are just rules that I have. A certain position size, that we're not going to put too many eggs in one basket in one place. Not to say we diversify, it's more position sizing than diversification. There's a big difference. So these types of rules, timing of things, the third Friday of the month is general options expiration. So the following Monday or later on that Friday, we'll write for the next month, and we have timing procedures. So there's all kinds of things that are procedural with systems, and when you do things, what you do and when you do and how you do them is answering those questions. What are your standard operating procedures? And another way to look at that, Del, is systems have a lot to do with policy. And at the government level, you have a fiscal policy and you have a monetary policy, but do people have a personal investing policy? Are there certain policies they have for their system that they follow? And I submit that there's no government policy. I look at this guy they've hired to run New York. I'm a little concerned. Number one, I'm not sure he's ever done anything other than talk a lot. And when I look at the policies, they're rough. They're really, really rough. But given that, I don't see how those policies can bring abundance to people. Maybe they get some free stuff, but it seems more like, very, very policies to kind of bring an average around into people. I don't see any abundance for any individual in that, where because of those, they have the opportunity to live in tremendous abundance. I think a person's personal policies have much more horsepower than any external policy you could have. I think a personal system is much more powerful than, say, a corporate system or a government system or a Wall Street system. So I'm very much an individual. I believe in individual freedom, and that happiness is individual. What one person values is different than what I value often, and they should espouse those values. But those systems that are personal, and that are tied to your personal values of what you care about are much more horsepower, much more potential than any outside system can deliver.
Well
I just
said.
know that's true.
I have to agree with you wholeheartedly on that one. Uh, Thinking about habits and starting today, what's one habit someone could start today that would have the biggest long-term impact for them?
Well, I don't want to do the broken record, but it's the same answer. It's the meeting. That is the one habit. As I said before, that is the one that you could start before 2020 or 2026 that would have a bigger impact than anything else. Focusing on that once a week and then deciding, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to learn? Who am I going to visit? That is the single most important habit they could start today that would move the needle faster than anything else.
That's great. I love that. Last question. How can they start building momentum going into the new year? You have the weekly meeting. Any other things that we can do to really build that momentum going into 2026?
Yeah. There is another thing you should do. Well, I won't say should. People can do whatever the hell they want. What you should do, what I should do. That's what politicians, they want to tell you what you should do. So I'll tell you something you can do if you want to. When you play the cash flow game, the very first thing that you do to start that momentum, to start that spark, the very, very, very first thing you do when you start that game is you choose a dream. Because the dream is what drives you. Being great, having that something that you want. And there's all types of sample things on the board you can pick, charities or, owning your own whatever. But dreaming is a function of expenses. In other words, we have a calculator that we have available. If you go to the stockcastbonus.com, you'll get access to all this. But what we do is we build a dream life. And you just take all the negativity and all the I can't stuff, and you just go into a dream world for a minute and you say, what would be just ideal? What type of homes would I like to have? What type of vehicles would I, what type of lifestyle? And that might not light you up. For example, my automobile goals are not that big because I don't fit anything. But my travel goals with my kids and the experiences I want to give them are off the chart expensive, right? They're big. And so you decide what type of dream life you want. And there's 10 or 12 categories we have on our calculator. What type of food do you want to eat in your dream life? Is your idea of heaven supersizing McDonald's? Is that your idea of heaven, Del? You want to supersize that meal?
Supersize me, yeah.
Yeah, or is it, you hired Gordon Ramsay to come cook for you? Or is it kind of like me where I like to go and get some organic foods and I like to cook myself, right? I like to have the best ingredients. What is your dream life when it comes to travel? How many places do you want to go and see? What is your dream life when it comes to the legacy you leave? And all these are expenses. So you write out what that dream life is in those categories, and then you do something really magical. You price them out. And as soon as you do that, the dream becomes a project that quick. And it turns a dream into a project to where you say, okay, this is how much money it costs me to live my dream life. Now it's finite. It's no longer ambiguous. It's no longer in the ether. It's now finite. And you can chip away at that. And you can make plans for that. Like on our last podcast, what type of assets can get me there? Probably not a mutual fund. Probably not. Probably an asset that's different, but they're there. I might have to incur some leverage to get there because I've waited too long to pursue my dreams. So I'm going to employ leverage. Well, now, sorry, Dave Ramsey and Susie, you're out of. We're going to use some debt here. We're going to do it. We're going to do it responsibly. So as soon as if you want to start that spark, start building your dream life, and all of a sudden, once you put a price tag on it, you realize, yeah, actually, this is possible. This is possible. Now, it's not work free, right? It's not sacrifice free. It's certainly not work free, but you can see a line from where you are to where you want to be, and it's possible. Even big goals and big life, because you give a lever long enough, you can move the world. And with your return range is everywhere from losing everything you got to infinite return. That's how broad that is. And with that 1-2 punch of compounding and leverage, a lot of things are achievable with the right knowledge. So what is the one thing someone could do to start building momentum and get a spark and get themselves going? Indulge in a little dreaming and think about, how much time you got left in this life and what you want to make of it. And it can get you going. It can get you going when you see the opportunities that are out there.
There we go. I love that, Andy. That's such a great way to end this podcast. And just to add to it, I would say when you dreams in specifics. Don't just say I want to go to Europe. It's I want to go to Rome, and using Andy's example, eat cacio e pepe, something that's great. So being very specific is so important.
When you put a price on it, then it's specific. And that's a great exercise you just did. Okay, I'm going to stay at the Four Seasons and I'm going to get on there. Okay, this is the suite I'm going to stay in. And as soon as you have the hotel and the suite, you have the price. This is the restaurant I'm going to eat at. This is the plane I'm going to take. This is you can price any of these things. And when you put a price tag on it, that's real. Say that is the price. Now it turns the dream into a project like that quick. And that's a quantum leap forward when you realize, all right, there's just a price to be paid, right? In work and learning and in energy and going after it.
There we go. I love it. I love it. Well, listeners, your habits are your future. And if you want 2026 to look different than 2025, it starts with what you do today. Huge thank you to Andy Tanner for helping expose what's really holding people back and showing the path forward. And make sure you go to stockcastbonus.com right now. Get your free tools that will help you to shift from broke habits to wealth habits and finish this year strong. And if this episode helped you, like it, subscribe, share it with someone who needs a wake-up call. You're not here by accident. You're building something most people won't. Stay smart, stay invested, and we'll see you next time.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.